Hey guys, the Geek again. Sorry, I'm a little exhausted. I just got done with SpringCon this weekend. It's a little convention in Minnesota at the State Fairgrounds. Nothing big, honestly. To me, it feels like a giant garage sale for nerds with some con elements sprinkled in. There are artist booths and the occasional panel, but I usually go there for buying stuff. And I found some of these here, or there. It's already been opened, obviously. The World of Nintendo Microland Small World Big Fun playsets. There are 4 of them that I know of, and a bigger one that's not packaged like this. It's a full enclosed box. And I will show these off on my next video. But I'm here to talk to you guys today about video games. Whenever I talk to a friend about video games, history of video games comes up. Like, what was your favorite game, stuff like that. And what drives me nuts is that people only know what they've seen here, and a lot of people don't even know that. It's like, oh yeah, I played the Nintendo 64, that was old school. Like, no, it wasn't. Are you kidding? You want to get old school, you talk about the original Nintendo, the NES. If you want to get really old school, you have to go over the pond into Japan and talk about the Nintendo Famicom. And I will be showing that off in a minute too, but I'm really here to talk about a video game series that I love a lot. Years ago, I don't remember the exact year because I'm lazy, they released a set of games called the Nintendo Classics Collection. They're basically original Nintendo games that they were reporting on the Game Boy Advance. Remember the Game Boy Advance, kids? I'll have to get one of those too to show you. And anyway, in the US, we got 12 or 13 of them. Japan got 30. 30! And they got them in numbers. Like, each game was numbered as part of a collection. And if you were really lucky, Club Nintendo Japan would offer you a deal where you could get sets of 10 in box sets, which on eBay go for as high as $3,000 now. I really want them, but I can't afford them, clearly. But we are going to dive into the Famicom Mini Collection. I have about 13 of them. They made 30, as I said before. And before I show them off, I'm going to go into a little bit of history about them. So, like, anyway, Japan got 30 original games, and those games were in sets of 3. What I mean is, there was 3 sets of 10. And I think they came out like at 10 at a time and stuff like that. So, the first set was the original Super Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong, Ice Climbers, Excite Bike, Zelda, or the original Legend of Zelda, I gotta stop wobbling, Pac-Man, Vexus, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, Mappy, Bomberman, and Star Soldier. Now, granted, some of these games were only released in Japan, so we weren't going to get them here for the Nintendo Classics anyway, but there were a lot of games we could have gotten here that we didn't. Rah, nerd rage! The second set was the original arcade Mario Brothers, which you can play in any Game Boy Advance, Super Mario Advance game. Clu Clu Land, Balloon Fight, Wrecking Crew, Dr. Mario, Dig Dug, Adventure Island, which had a different name in Japan, which I'm not even going to try to say here. Ghosts and Goblins, Twinbee, and Gabre Goemon, Karakuri, Duchu, yeah, and here, that is basically the Mystical Ninja. And the third set was Super Mario Bros. 2, which we never got until Super Mario All-Stars, which was the Lost Levels here. And I'll get into that in a little bit later. There's Super Mario Bros. 2, Murasame's Mysterious Castle, Metroid, Kid Icarus, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, I can live without that one, Shin Onigashima, Famicom Detective Club, The Missing Heir, Famicom Detective Club 2, The Girl in the Back, I know, it's the lamest name ever, Castlevania, and SD Gundam, which is obviously a Gundam video game, but it seems really, really childish down, like the chibi art kind of stuff. Anyway, so that's 30 games, and before we go into showing off the actual game stuff, like I said, I have about 13 of the 30, and what I wanted to get into before I actually show them off is the history a little bit of Super Mario Bros. 2, because a lot of people don't even know that, believe that or not. When I say Super Mario Bros. 2, for this set, I'm talking about Super Mario Lost Levels. What happened was Japan got Super Mario Bros. 2, and when it was time to port it to the States, people were like, you know what? This might be too hard for those stupid Americans. Let's take a game that we made for a festival in Japan, because the Americans are too stupid to learn about our customs. Take out the main character sprites, put in Mario characters, and sell that as Super Mario Bros. 2 in the States, which they did. And to their credit, that game is awesome. That's my opinion. A lot of people did not like it, and I can understand why. Probably the same reason why I hate Zelda 2. But anyway, it was a great game for what it was, and we eventually got the original Super Mario Bros. 2, and I can easily live without that one. But anyway, we're done with the history lesson. Let's dive into the games. We got the Nintendo Entertainment System, and we all know what that looks like, mostly because I don't feel like disconnecting mine. But this is what Japan got before we ever got the Nintendo. This is the Nintendo Family Computer, or the Famicom. And this is a little different than an NES. First of all, their controllers were hardwired into the system. You couldn't take them out. And honestly, for its design, I thought it was pretty cool. But the second controller is really the most interesting part, because the second controller does not have a start or select button. It instead has a volume control and a microphone. Now, the microphone actually was built into some of the games at the time. Like, you had to use the microphone to kill an enemy in Legend of Zelda and stuff like that. And it has this little dust cover, which I kind of like. And when you had to put a game in, you put it in, obviously. But when you had to take it out, you push this up. Just like the Super Nintendo system, this thing will push the game out for you. And then we got the power switch and the reset. And then there was an add-on called the Famicom Disk System that would plug into this to play some games better than others, and I don't have that, so I can't show that to you. This is what we got for the classic Nintendo series. This was The Legend of Zelda for the original NES, and the only difference is that it's been ported to the Game Boy Advance. Now, you can tell by looking at another regular Game Boy Advance game that the shading on this is a little bit lighter. That's to coincide with the coloring of the original NES carts. A cartridge for the NES was this color, so we're getting into that. Anyway, this was Zelda for the Game Boy Advance from America, and this was Japan's version. You can tell right away there's different coloring, not to mention different artwork. These were the first ones for the Famicom Mini Collection. These are red and white, obviously, to match the colors of the Famicom system. So, there's that. This is what the packaging looked like. And if you can't tell, this one is a little bit different than other Famicom games. And I know you probably can't tell from here, but let's get a little closer. This is the original Super Mario Bros. For the Famicom Mini Collection. The artwork has a symbol for the 20th anniversary logo, and a little bit of a scene here. There's a Goomba, Koopa, Mario, and a mushroom. A regular cart packaging has this stuff on here. And this was obviously to coincide with the Super Mario Bros. 20th anniversary. Or at least the 20th anniversary of Mario. First we're going to open this thing up. And I'll show you how to do that. Well, if you don't know how to open a box, I'm worried for you. But the first part of the packaging is the little plastic shell. And I love this idea so much. So anyway, we got the little plastic shell. We're done with that. And this was obviously what's inside it. And what's in here is two boxes. The little box inside the bigger box. And we'll get to this in a moment. But first, let's open this. Inside you have a little piece of cardboard to hold things together, and then a big old folding sheet which makes up the instructions, and I'm not even going to bother folding all that up. I'll put all this back so I don't lose it. And then we have this stuff in the back of the bigger box, which has 3 screenshots. And this one I think is different too. Yep, this is different too. And here's how. This one has the the Game Boy Advance Micro. This one just has a regular Game Boy Advance. And I don't know what the reasoning for that is, mostly because I can't read Japanese. So this is what the box looks like on the back. We got 3 pieces of artwork. I think this stuff is basically compatibility notes, like it's 2-player or not or whatever. Again, I can't read Japanese, so I can't tell you. And then we have this little guy. This might not look familiar to you, but if you were in Japan, it would, because it looks exactly like this. This is the original Famicom packaging, and this is a very miniaturized, condensed version of it. And it's almost the same in the back, except in the original they have the Nintendo logo and a barcode, and here they just have some Japanese text, which I cannot read. Again, we're going to open up this. Now here's something I don't care for. There's the instruction booklet for that. This is what the original Famicom cartridge looked like. Now it's a little smaller than an NES cartridge, and I honestly don't know the reasoning for that. And this is the Famicom Mini cart. You can tell it's a big difference, and unlike the Nintendo Classics versions, these do not match the actual cartridge. And again, I don't know why that is. But anyway, we've seen the packaging, we've seen the games. Now we're going to get into all the games that I actually have. Of course, first we've already seen Mario, so we're going to skip him. So next, I have number 2, which is Donkey Kong. And I'll zoom in on that for you a little bit. Again, it's packaged the exact same way as all the others, with the original artwork of the packaging in the middle. This is one of my favorites. Number 5 is The Legend of Zelda. And that box is a little different. And I honestly don't know why. I think it's because it was originally, might have been released for the Famicom Disk System, which had different packaging or something. I honestly don't know. But number 8 is kind of weird. This is Mappy. It's a mouse cop. I honestly don't know anything about the plot, other than it's a mouse cop hitting things. And here's the artwork on the back. It's really nothing to write home about, but it's an entertaining game. Number 9 is the classic Bomberman. Classic to most people. I've never played this game until I got this, and honestly, to me, it was nothing really to write home about, but I can see the appeal as to why so many people do like it. And then number 10 is what I think is a Japanese-only game, Star Soldier. There's actually a little animated guy on the packaging. I don't know if this was an anime or just packaging art. And that played like 1942's a shooter where you're like just shooting and stuff. And then number 12 is Clu Clu Land. Then 17 was the first one I ever got, Adventure Island, which is something else in Japan, and I am not going to look over what that was because I'll butcher the name no matter what happens. And then number 20 was Gabri Goemon, which in the States would be known as the Mystical Ninja. Now, we never got the Nintendo game, but we got the Game Boy game, and then the Super Nintendo game. And the reason why this game is so personally important to me is because the Super Nintendo version was the first game I got for the Super Nintendo. And honestly, all those games have basically the same core mechanic. They play almost identically. Then it was Murasame's Mysterious Castle, and this plays kind of like The Legend of Zelda. It's a lot less forgiving, and honestly, it's just not the classic Zelda was. Number 26 is Shin Onigashima. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And number 27 is Famicom Detective Club, The Missing Heir. This is a text-based video game, which means I can't play it at all because it's in Japanese text. And something I should point out, did I miss it on the first ones? Yeah. I missed it on these 3, I think. If you notice, I'll point it out. There's a little guy here, and my camera will not show it to you very well, who was the logo for the Famicom Disk System. I think his name was Diskin. But if you can tell, all these game packages have the little Nintendo yellow lettering on it. That's because these were packaged as Famicom disc games, and that packaging showed this, which was on the actual disc at the time. The number 3 is SD Gundam. This is the goofiest game I've ever tried to play. It feels more like a flight simulator game. I've never been able to get anywhere in it. Honestly, if you're getting these games just to play them, skip this one, unless you're hardcore into Japanese stuff. So, one other thing I feel I should point out, the first 2 games, let's grab Mappy here, looked like this. That looks good right there. Games 21 through 30 looked like this. Now these were the coloring of the Famicom system, and these ones are actually colored after the discs you would get for a Famicom disc game. So why they couldn't color these like these, I don't know. It would have made more sense to me, honestly, but at the same time, I love the Famicom coloring. But I honestly think that's only because I never had a Famicom growing up, so seeing the colors of the Famicom really just bring a joy to me. I love these things. They cheer me up so much just knowing they exist and that I'm able to get them, but they're more expensive than they should be. I've seen them go for as much as $60, and that's really rough. But if you can afford them, some of them aren't that expensive, and they are fun to pick up. And if you remember the originals and you can get by a little bit of a language gap, it is a ton of fun. So this is the Geek saying, see you next time. Good journey.